Welcome to Asketic podcast about design, branding, and business in Latvia and the Baltic region. This episode is going to be in English because our guest Pyry from Catchbox is from Finland. Catchbox is based here in Riga, but it was started a few years ago in Finland. Catchbox is now used by top universities in the world and companies like Uber, Tesla, and Airbnb. Over the last couple of months, Catchbox did a complete rebranding of their visual identity. So we sat down with Pyry to discuss his experience through that process and why they thought it was necessary. Please enjoy. So hi Pyry, thanks for coming. When I looked at your website, it mentioned that Catchbox, this throwable microphone, is used by Tesla, Google, Airbnb, and more than 40% of Fortune 500 companies. So it's quite remarkable. Congratulations on that.
Cheers, thanks.
Can you give us, for those of us who don't know, what Catchbox is, like a quick pitch, what it is and what it's for?
Sure. So it is a wireless microphone, basically, meant for audience engagement. So it's throwable. It's basically soft and fluffy, so that you can basically just throw it into the audience from person to person, and this kind of like breaks the ice between the people, and obviously you can ask questions and makes the engagement much more easy.
You're yourself from Helsinki, right?
Yeah.
And but the company is based here in Riga.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give us a quick insight how that happened?
Kind of like a backstory.
Yeah.
We started 2012, so some 7-8 years ago already, and the history and the roots of the company are in Finland. So it was like three fellows studying in the same university. And to be precise, it's not actually Helsinki; it's the city next door called Espoo.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were kind of like just young, maybe a bit naive students with very similar interests towards product development, design, a lot of ambitions about coming up with something of our own, maybe in a form of a startup company.
Can you give a little backstory of how you went from a little student idea to actually a business and starting? Like, did you sell? Was it a huge success from the beginning, or you slowly started selling, and how it moved from like one hit wonder to an actual profitable company?
Right. At first, it was really like this. How would I say? Like a rough concept that we just put together in a hackathon. Really, it was like like it barely worked, but it was something that we made ourselves just to like test the market, see if there's something there. Yeah. For sure, we wanted to turn it into a company, already in the beginning. We just didn't know how difficult
that would be.
Okay. Yeah.
What was the lessons learned from the early stages when you were just like finding the first sales and then moving on? And was it just door to door, or it was purely e-commerce, or?
I mean, the good thing with our every team has a little bit of luck also involved, and we've had a little bit of that as well, especially in the beginning. I guess the fact that we found one another is that's the most important thing. But really, like where we got a little bit of, shall I say, like recognition or virality was that we worked on the first summer on this prototype, and at the end of the summer we won this kind of student incubator program.
Okay.
Like meant for startups, and that win basically caused like this tiny viral spike overnight. There were some influencers there, and we got some tweets. Hey, this is like a really cool thing, and that small amount of virality kind of gave us some maybe like 500 emails.
Let's talk a bit about the rebranding, because you mentioned you're not a very young company. You've been operating for a few years and quite successfully, and then at one point you decided you want to do a rebranding.
Yeah.
And how did you came to that conclusion? What kickstarted
Like
that?
why?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I guess, like, yeah, it's a good question. We as a startup company, you know, and in our case, we're a bootstrapped company. So meaning like we never raised any capital for the company. So for us, it's really been a kind of like a journey where we've kind of built the company kind of layer by layer, you know, brick by brick, and you as a startup company, you kind of need to go about and use the resources that you have whenever, and kind of, you know, grow. It was something that I sat down on a computer and I made a logo for us in like few hours, and kind of like put together, oh yeah, let's use this font, and here's maybe like an idea for the logo, and I'm not a graphic designer myself, but it was fine. It was like, as a startup company, it's totally fine. You know, you can like come by, you know, 1 is better than 0. We had something, right? And in the end, I think we used that first version of the brand for the first 2-3 years. And again, as the company has grown, you know, and you become more mature, you realize that, well, the brand itself is not actually just the logo, not just the colors, you know, the typography and stuff like that. There's all the messaging, all the values, all the vision, everything from the company kind of comes together into the brand ideally. And we realized that, you know, we had kind of been kind of rediscovering some of those elements over the years, and we felt that, you know, now would be the right time to kind of do it properly and do it the kind of like the big, you know, hopefully the final kind of like version of the brand. And I do think that it is kind of like the culmination of where the brand is today. Is like hopefully it's like the real deal, if you know what I mean.
How do you decide what's the best way to select the studio or do it yourself, and where to do it? Because now you can get a logo for 15 euros now.
Go to Fiverr.com and there you can get a logo. Yeah, I mean, it basically starts from like, yeah, you have to have a vision. You have to have some bigger idea of what is this brand going to be. Like, what do we want from it? Even without having individual, you know, elements or anything in place. But of course, like, as you need to have some direction, and usually it's the founders or it's somebody who's very immersed with the company to understand, like, what are we really doing here, and what's the kind of what is the message, what are the values, you know, of the company. I think oftentimes these things kind of are derived from that. In those previous experiences, like for example with the Brazilians, it was more concrete. You know, we knew that, hey, we needed to kind of polish the brand, we needed to make it look a bit more premium and more professional. And we kind of knew that, you know, we wanted to maintain this type of, like, we had a very clear idea of what it should be like visually, like, and a lot of big deal of that was a kind of colorful nature, you know. That's why we were like, hey, you know, Brazilians, man, like, this is like
very colorful.
Yeah, this is like samba and all that stuff, you know, colorful culture. Partially so. In the reality, we just went through Behance and we were kind of browsing for a lot of different agencies and ended up with the Brazilian one.
What are the lessons learned once you finish the grand redesign, that you have the final presentation and you agree on the logo, and then it takes 9 months, a year, like, what's the lessons learned here? Did you expect that it will take 9 months after you finish the rebranding, or how the implementation part went on? And
I had pretty clear estimation that this is not going to be a walk in the park. It's not going to be an easy thing. It's gonna take some time, some money to get this made properly. And I think everybody else involved also kind of shared that same idea, and rightfully so. You know, we weren't rushing things, you know, too much, and we took it pretty seriously, actually. You know, exactly. I would say, like in the beginning, especially like before anything was drawn, we spent a couple of good months, you know, with the agency talking about, you know, back and forth, kind of, trying to discover what the company's about, and clarifying that kind of philosophical side of the brand before actually manifesting that into the visuals, if that makes sense.
When you look at our region, like the Baltic Sea region, and what do you think are the things that will help and should be done to help brands like Catchbox and other brands from our region to get a word out in the world and be seen and be noticed?
There's a lot of people kind of came to us and said, like, oh, you guys are like, you're going to sell it abroad, you know, that's interesting, you know, you're not first going to take over the Finnish market, but you're actually starting to sell to Sweden or wherever, like, you know, immediately. And for us, that was an obvious decision. We didn't think about that at all.
It's often said that if you have like a tech startup, it's very important to be in the center of San Francisco, or at least in London. You've stayed in relatively north, and in Riga, in Helsinki. And have you seen that it disadvantages you in any way, or do people notice it, or they don't care, or why haven't you moved to the very central spots of the tech industry?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for us, come to think of it now, in the beginning at least, you know, Finland was a great place to get started. You know, we, as I mentioned, you know, the costs for a student, you know, which we basically were, they weren't not bad at all, frankly, and there's a lot of benefits that, you know, our country provided us with all sorts of like loans and financing instruments, you know, that we could utilize. I'm not sure if places like North America would have similar things. Yeah, I think it's not a deal breaker. You can, in my opinion, kind of start your company wherever you want.
Thanks. Thank you for coming, and good luck with
cool,
the Catchbox.
Anytime, man. Thanks. It was good. Cheers.